Morning everybody, how are y'all doing today? I'm doing pretty great myself because today, once again, we have another PlayStation fanboy to take a look at, as we do most days. Now, we actually have covered this guy in the past before, only once, and it was basically because he was simping for Sony and trying to justify the fact that they were disabling the ability for people to redeem their PS Plus gift cards even if they had already paid for them. And honestly, this guy's kind of a special case when it comes to being a fanboy because most of the time, he's actually not bad or anything. He's not, I wouldn't say unbiased, but you know, he doesn't really go too hard with fanboying for the most part. But it feels like every few months or so, he just makes one video where he can't help but let the fanboy within himself get out. Griffin Gaming actually made a video on him a little over 2 years ago, I think it was, back when the PS5 and Xbox Series X hadn't even come out yet. And basically, he was trying to claim that millions of people would be choosing to buy a PS5 instead of a Series X because the PS5's UI was rendered in native 4K and a test build UI for the Series X was rendered in 1080p. And then obviously, you know, a couple months ago, like I said, he had that whole episode when it came to the PS Plus gift cards. But now he is back with another very bad take. This time, basically, we're not going to watch the entire video because the part I wanted to cover is in the last section. Luckily, he has the courtesy to separate his videos into chapters, which makes my job a whole lot easier. But this video can basically be summarized as he's saying Sony is in the right for being hypocritical and trying to call out Microsoft for wanting to buy Activision, even though, you know, Sony's bought out plenty of studios. And as far as I'm aware, Microsoft hasn't really complained at all about that. And also, you know, Sony loves to make games exclusive, even if, you know, they haven't even bought out the studio. They'll just pay game studios to make a third-party game exclusive. But apparently, all of a sudden, it's a problem when Microsoft wants to buy a studio and make their games exclusive. But anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video.
The final topic we're talking about is about everybody's favorite topic of discussion, that being the Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard and Call of Duty and Sony's stance on this. We do have yet another update here, reading from VGC. Once again, they say Sony has responded to the news that the UK competition regulator has launched an in-depth probe of Microsoft's proposed acquisition of Activision Blizzard. On Thursday, the Competition and Markets Authority, or the CMA, said its inquiry into the $68 billion merger has officially been expanded to a second phase due to a number of antitrust concerns.
Notably, the CMA is worried about the impact that the deal could have on PlayStation's ability to compete, given the deal would see Microsoft gain ownership of the Call of Duty series. Sony welcomed the news that the CMA is set to expand its inquiry in a statement issued to GamesIndustry.biz. Quote, "By giving Microsoft control of Activision games like Call of Duty, this deal would have major negative implications for gamers and the future of the gaming industry," end quote. They continue by saying, quote, "We want to guarantee PlayStation gamers continue to have the highest quality gaming experience, and we appreciate the CMA's focus on protecting gamers," end quote.
Okay, I'm sorry. I know even with part of that clip sped up, it was still like a minute long, but I needed to let the whole thing play out. But here we go. Once again, Sony is hiding behind their own customers. I just find this so ironic. You know, the CMA wants to protect gamers, and we appreciate them for that. Meanwhile, you know, Sony's out here charging $70 for games. And let's not forget, they're increasing the price of the PS5 while also decreasing the price that it costs to make. And again, that whole gift card thing. Even if you already paid for a gift card, you could not redeem it because Sony didn't want you to. And my God almighty, the gall of Sony to call out Microsoft for being, oh, you know, like, we don't want them to make their games exclusive. First of all, Microsoft offered an additional 3 years of Call of Duty beyond the contract. They did not have to do that whatsoever. Even PlayStation fanboys, like the guy who we looked at, who remember was trying to downplay the price increase, even he agreed that, like, come on, Jim Ryan. Microsoft doesn't have to do anything for Sony, and they are still willing to go 3 years beyond the initial contract. I swear to God, Jim Ryan is the kind of spoiled kid on Christmas who would ask for an iPhone 13 and then get upset when he gets an iPhone 12 instead. You know what? I'm going to do a little thing here. I'm going to reverse this quote and put it against Sony just to show how hypocritical it is. By giving Sony control of Insomniac games like Sunset Overdrive, this deal would have major negative implications for gamers gamers in the future of the gaming industry. We want to guarantee Xbox gamers continue to have the highest quality gaming experience, and we appreciate the CMA's focus on protecting gamers. Because remember how, Sunset Overdrive, that was the thing, people liked it, it was on Xbox, and then Sony bought out Insomniac, and now Sunset Overdrive 2 is basically never going to happen, and if it does, it's probably going to be PlayStation exclusive. There's no need to protect gamers from that kind of stuff, but when Microsoft does it, that's when it's a problem. And once again, Microsoft is offering an additional 3 years, whereas whenever Sony buys a studio, every single game from that studio typically goes exclusive to PlayStation, and if there were games that were going to come out on Xbox, it basically doesn't happen. Again, Sunset Overdrive.
Earlier this month, Xbox boss Phil Spencer said that Microsoft had committed to making Call of Duty available on PlayStation for several more years after Sony's current marketing deal with Activision expires. During this period, Call of Duty games released on PlayStation would have feature and content parity. But as we know, Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO Jim Ryan came out and let everybody know that the deal was only good for 3 years, and he deemed it inadequate on many levels.
And I still can't believe that. That's basically Jim Ryan saying, well, see, when we buy studios and make games permanently exclusive to PlayStation and, eventually PC, that's perfectly okay. But when Microsoft wants to buy a studio or a publisher, and then even after they own them, continue to support PlayStation for several more years after that, that's just not okay. We're Sony, they're Microsoft. We've earned the right to do that. They don't get to do that. Honestly, Jim Ryan in this entire situation is probably being more hypocritical than any other PlayStation fanboy I can even think of. Besides maybe, J-Tech calling out people for spoiling games, and then, he spoils plot points in PlayStation games that come to PC.
So, this should not come off as a surprise to literally anybody. What we are seeing here is, the CMA basically saying we have to take more time to look into this acquisition more thoroughly. We have concerns, and Sony is just standing right there saying, yeah, I think this is something that could be detrimental. I think this is a great idea. I think you guys really should be doing this. You should be giving Microsoft some flack here and really probing into this. And that's...
I don't want to speed up any more parts of this video, and I didn't really have anything to add there, so you know what? I'm going to take this time to ask you guys a question. Are you surprised that Sony's being insanely hypocritical about the situation? Were you expecting this from them, or did you think that they wouldn't be hypocritical and they would actually, realize that there's quite literally nothing they can do to stop this, and they just have to hope and pray that the CMA stops it?
That's all this is. And I've said it before, I'll say it again here. Sony is not just going to be silent with this. They're not just going to let Microsoft come in, make one of the biggest acquisitions in gaming, maybe the biggest acquisition in gaming, come in and gain ownership of Call of Duty and just simply do nothing about it. They're going to try to make it as difficult for Microsoft as they can.
Okay, but here's my question though. How are they going to make it more difficult? There is quite literally nothing Sony can do, at least as far as I know. All Sony can do is sit there and cope and seethe and just hope that the CMA doesn't let this acquisition go through. Which, if Microsoft still plans on putting Activision games on PlayStation for several more years after the acquisition, then something tells me they have a pretty good chance of this going through. But I just absolutely love it. Microsoft, they've always stayed quiet, at least as far as I know, when Sony acquires someone, because, they understand there's nothing they can do about it. But now that the tables are turned and Microsoft is making these big acquisitions, Sony just doesn't know how to handle it, and all of a sudden they're crying, oh, it's a monopoly. Oh, this is gonna hurt our gamers. We need gamers to rise up against this. Even though they're hurting their own gamers more than Microsoft could ever be. Because, again, higher prices when it costs them less to make the PS5, $70 games. Disabling gift cards, no digital refunds if you download the game, etc. Microsoft is definitely the one who's attacking the Sony gamers.
I've seen people getting frustrated, seemingly, on the internet, basically saying that Sony is either in the wrong here, or they're hypocritical, or they need to just stop making it seem like this is in the best interest of their gamers. I need to make something clear here for people.
I would just like to throw it out here. I totally agree with basically every single thing he just said that people were saying, but let's go ahead and see what he wants to make clear.
And to me, it's kind of baffling that people don't see this more clearly. Why would Jim Ryan, why would Sony not fight to try to make this more difficult for Microsoft to achieve? Why would they not fight to try to keep Call of Duty on their platform?
Alright, first off, I've said this in a few other videos, but typically, if you're seeing something that absolutely nobody else is seeing, maybe there's a reason for that, and maybe there's a reason nobody else has brought it up. I'd just like to have that said. But second of all, I'm gonna answer your question with a question. Why would they fight? Hell, this isn't even really a fight if you think about it, because this is more so Sony calling in like their older brother, in this case it would be the CMA, and they're saying, hey, this guy's been bullying me, can you fight him for me, please? Even though Sony's been picking the fights most of the time with Microsoft. But yeah, I totally get why they're fighting. You know, Call of Duty makes them a ton of money. But at the same time, just because we understand why somebody wants something to go their way doesn't mean we can't, you know, fight against it or call them out for it. Let's say I went into a store and let's say I wanted to buy a new pair of pants or whatever, and the pants were $50 and I thought that was way too expensive. I can fight the store all I want. I can say, okay, this is BS. You know what? I want this pair of pants to be like half off or like 30% off, whatever. I think most people can understand why you'd want a discount on something you're paying for, especially if it's overpriced. However, let's say I had a business where I sold shirts, and I charged $75 for each shirt. You can still see why I'd want the discount because, you know, I don't want to pay $50 for a pair of pants. But when I myself am also contributing to the problem of overpriced clothing, or in this case, you know, exclusivity when it comes to the consoles, again, people can understand why I want the discount, but that doesn't make it any less hypocritical, and that doesn't mean people can't call me out for it. And if you're wondering why I decided to use like clothing instead of food or something like that, it's because I know a lot of you guys, the last time I made a food analogy, you said I made you hungry, so I'm sorry about that. Hopefully that didn't happen this time unless you just like to eat pants or something. So yeah, we can understand why Sony doesn't want Call of Duty to be owned by Microsoft, but that doesn't mean we can't call them out for being complete hypocrites. Because Sony is way worse about exclusivity than Microsoft.
I understand that Sony is a billion-dollar corporation, and just like all corporations, it's business as usual. I'm not saying they're your friends. I'm not saying that we should eat up the marketing terminology that any company uses by saying, you know, we want to do what's best for our gamers, and we care about our gamers.
I find that very ironic coming from you, dude, considering in Griffin's video that I mentioned earlier, you were eating up the fact that PlayStation said that their UI would be native 4K and have HDR elements to it. You were eating that up like it was a chocolate cake. And there I go, I just made a food analogy. Great, I'm sorry if I made you guys hungry. You know what, if that made you hungry, go get a piece of cake, go get a $5 hot and ready from Little Caesars or something, and then come back to this video. I don't want you guys to watch my videos on an empty stomach, because good God, I have a really bad habit of making food analogies.
But seriously though, like if you are somebody who owns a PlayStation, why would you advocate for Sony to just let a game series like Call of Duty, which has always been available on the PlayStation platform, just be let go? I mean, if you're somebody who absolutely despises Call of Duty, I feel like that kind of makes sense, right? You'd be like, whatever, good riddance. But even if you're somebody who's indifferent to Call of Duty, what do you have to gain by just seeing Sony kind of roll over and say, go ahead, Microsoft, take it and do what you will?
Hear me out, dude. It's because most people aren't PlayStation fanboys, and most people can call out hypocrisy no matter what platform they're on. And just because people are calling out Sony for their hypocrisy doesn't mean people want Call of Duty to leave PlayStation. I've said this in countless videos, but I want Activision games, especially Call of Duty, to remain on PlayStation. And it looks like that is going to happen for a while, unless Jim Ryan gets so petty about Microsoft's, you know, deal with with him that he actually decides to reject the extra 3 years, which would not surprise me at this point. But also, Sony wouldn't be rolling over and taking it if they kept silent, because there is nothing they can do about it. All they can do is sit there and hope that this does not go through. In a sense, Jim Ryan is basically wasting his time by, complaining and making comments about the situation. He's just desperate to keep Call of Duty. That's all it is.
Now, I've always advocated for something like this, maybe forcing Sony to be more competitive, putting a little bit more pressure on them. Maybe we'll get something even better out of them. I'm not against that. I think that is something that could happen. But at the same time,
let me guess, now you're not okay with it because it's actually happening. Because let me guess, you never actually thought it was gonna happen, so you just said you were okay with it. But now that it is happening, you're just not okay with it. Who could have seen that one coming? And I already explained this in my last video, but, if Sony is going to have to compete with Call of Duty, isn't that a good thing? How is a company being forced to make bigger and better games a bad thing? Guarantee it's because this guy knows nothing Sony does can come close to Call of Duty. I mean, hell, they even said that themselves. There is no competition for Call of Duty. Battlefield's dead in the water at this point. Modern Warfare 2 is stealing the hostage rescue mode from Siege. And there's a yearly release besides, next year, because Modern Warfare 2 is going to have a 2-year life cycle.
the more I think about this, the more ridiculous I think people just kind of look when they are pushing against Sony here for simply doing what they should be doing for their business and for their platform. And if you don't like the terminology they're using, I can understand that, but can we please not sit here and pretend that Phil Spencer and Microsoft aren't doing the exact same thing, just on the other side of the coin?
When have Microsoft and Phil Spencer ever, come out and said, oh, it's not fair that Sony gets to buy this company? When has that ever happened? Could somebody point me to one instance, please? I would genuinely like to know. As far as I know, to say that Microsoft is doing the same thing is complete BS and complete damage control on this guy's part.
That's what's bizarre to me. But, this is just something that, as I said, it's going to continue to happen, and we're going to continue to get more quotes out of Sony, out of Microsoft, and it's going to be an ongoing thing. And so, if you think Sony should just roll over and not say a word and not try to make this difficult for Microsoft and just simply say, go ahead, take Activision, take Call of Duty, we don't care. I understand that, but
my dude, you just spent a good chunk of this part of the video saying that it was, I don't remember the exact words he used, it was like baffling, or he just didn't understand why people had a problem with Sony, coming out and being against this. And now all of a sudden you understand it again. Excuse me while I press X'd out on that one.
I guess in this case, what I'm saying, I'm just thinking from a business standpoint, from a logical standpoint, there's no reason for them not to be coming out here and, kind of advocating for something like this to be happening.
I mean, there's no reason for them not to come out here and be against this besides the fact that, there's quite literally nothing they can do about it except for sit there and cry about it. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Basically, he just, wraps up, he asks for people's thoughts, and does his little outro and stuff. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't like it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will catch you all next time.